Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
And welcome to Sarah Stevens Tuesday Forum. My name is Laura McClady. I'm one of the facilitators for the Tuesday Forum, along with Mary Johnson, who's picking up coffee for us this morning for the first time, and Jackie Walton, Edwards Walton. Jackie, raise your hand. One of our facilitators. Natalie McGarrett, of course, Winston Robinson, and Sarita Cheryl, and of course Steve Johnson. We're the coordinators and facilitators for the Tuesday Morning Forum. And before we get started, we always like to start off with a prayer. So we'd like to ask Sarita if she would lead us in a word of prayer.
Would you join me as I pray, and let's pray together? Bow your heads, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for today. We're thankful for each other, for our neighbors, our neighborhoods. We're thankful for our city, for our county, for this state, for these United States. What a beautiful day to avail ourselves of the offerings that will be fed to us this morning. May it make us more informative citizens as we venture back into our communities and make our communities better places to live. God, remember the children every place. In your name, and in your Son Jesus' name, we pray. Let us say together, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sarita. You're welcome. Do we have anyone that's here for the very first time? Okay. Will you stand and introduce yourself?
Walt Bernard, I'm the Executive Director, Lakeview Neighborhood Alliance.
Okay, well.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Brian Middleton. I am a member of United Way, South Carolina.
Thank you. Well, anyone else? Okay, plus we have our guests who are here for the first time for the Tuesday Forum. And just as information for particularly you that are here for the first time, the way that we run the forum is that we actually have our guest speakers to speak. And once they present, we allow you to ask questions, but it's facilitated by the facilitator. And one of us, between the two of us, we will be getting the names by raise of hands for those that have questions. And once we recognize your hand, we write it down, write your name down, and we call on you accordingly. We ask you to ask one question and for a minute, and they can give an answer up to 2 minutes on the question that you're asking them. We ask you to just not try to interrupt, and we do not debate in the Tuesday Forum at all. We also have an audience because this is live stream, as of course, those that have been with us for a while is aware of the fact that we do live streaming here as well. So sometimes we get questions on our cell phones that we may ask from time to time. So I'd like to introduce Ms. Kathryn Firmin-Sellers, who is a Chief Impact Officer for United Way. And we put this request in, and we're so happy to have her. And Carlina Ivory Canty is one of our facilitators as well. But we'd like to introduce her, and she's going to introduce her person that she reports to at the United Way, who's the CEO of the United Way. So you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you, and introduce Laura, who will tell a little bit about herself, and then you can do your presentation, and then we'll go into the question and answers session.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So good morning, and thank you all for having me this morning. I am Kathryn Firmin-Sellers. I'm the Chief Impact Officer with United Way. I've been with United Way for about 4 years now, and I've been in the nonprofit sector for too long, over 20 years. And I'm here today with Laura Yates Clark, who's President and CEO of United Way. I'll let her introduce herself.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having us. I'm Laura. I have been at United Way almost 6 years. Well, I did an earlier tour at United Way some number of years ago, but have been back for about 6 years. I've been in this role for 4 years, and I'm a Charlotte native. born and raised. So are we gonna kick it off? Okay. So we thought what we would do is give you an overview of where United Way is today. It's an organization that's undergone tremendous change in the last few years, and so we wanted to provide you all an update and a picture of where we're headed. And then Kathryn's going to get into some of the specifics of what our funding is going to look like going forward, because it's quite different from traditional United Way and what it has been in the past. So if you can go to the next slide, please. I think that's me. Oh, thank you, Kathryn. So what does United Way do? So we get this question sometimes, right? For those folks that may not know United Way traditionally, historically in a community, our job is to try to solve some of the most complex problems in the community. So how do we bring together and marshal resources, collectively raise funds to dedicate to some of those complex issues like economic mobility, for instance, or the housing challenge that we face in our community. So we raise those funds, we convene the community to collaborate, to come up with plans for how to address those issues, and we also serve as an advocate, right? We want to make sure that we're speaking up and out on the issues that are most important in our community. Next slide, please. So over the last few years, we have morphed from being a very traditional United Way, where we funded about 100 organizations, and that 100 organization list had not changed very much in decades. If you looked at who United Way funded in 1970, 80, and you looked at who we were funding 5, 10 years ago, it would have looked very much the same. And they mostly would be names of organizations that you recognized. They are all great organizations, and they are doing good work in the community. But what United Way had to reckon with as we faced racial unrest in our community, as we saw the 50 out of 50 in economic mobility study, was that it was partly our responsibility to think about how to have greatest impact in the community. And if we were doing the same thing we were doing 80 or 90 years ago, then maybe we needed to think differently about it. And again, nothing against the organizations we were funding, but there's a lot of other nonprofits in this community that had not had the opportunity to be at the United Way table and to benefit from the resources of United Way. So we launched 2 pilots about 5 years ago, United Neighborhoods and Unite Charlotte. And those were designed to really shake up how we were doing our funding and to engage the community at a grassroots level. So United Neighborhoods is about holistic revitalization in some of our more challenged communities that's led by the residents of those communities. So it's not United Way coming in and saying, here's what we have, take it or leave it. Instead, it's what are your priorities, what are the strengths of your community, and how can United Way help? And then what do we do to bring those resources to bear in the community? Meanwhile, United Way is out fundraising year-round to make sure we have those resources available. Unite Charlotte was launched after the shooting death of Keith Lamont Scott, when United Way again said, what are we doing to play our part and to make sure that we've got the right voices at the table that are closest to the challenges our community is facing? So Unite Charlotte is designed to fund grassroots organizations led by people of color. And it's twofold. There's unrestricted operating support that's provided, but then there's also capacity building. I have run a startup nonprofit. I know what it's like to have, to need help, to not always know what you need to know. You get your 501c3 and there's a whole bunch of other stuff you got to know that nobody tells you, and you stumble along. We want to make sure that those organizations have the chance to grow and be healthy as nonprofit businesses while they're delivering on their mission. So it's funding and that capacity building that goes along with it. So those are the 2 pilots that we launched about 5 years ago. In the meantime, United Way still wants to be responsive to community needs. So think about the COVID Response Fund, for example, that we launched with the Foundation for the Carolinas. Collaboratively, we raised almost $25 million. We gave out almost 500 grants in this region. We want to be able to respond in a big way when this community has a crisis. So we're also looking at opportunities in that vein as we go forward for how can United Way make sure that we're being nimble, right? That we're not being stuck in who we always were, but how are we shifting to whatever the community needs. So those started out as pilots, as I mentioned. What we decided to do a couple of years ago was to flip all of our funding to these. So all of our traditional United Way partners, and there's about 70 of them right now, will be defunded at the end of this year. And they've had 4 to 5 years to plan for that. They've known that this shift is coming. It's still very difficult, right, for anybody that's relied on United Way funding, and we recognize that. But this is something that we felt like we had to do to continue to bring new partners and new voices and new faces to the table. So the majority of our funding going forward will go into an expansion of United Neighborhoods. So it will be very neighborhood-based funding. It will be the residents and leaders of those communities deciding what the priorities are, and then us working with them to bring the resources that we can to bear to address them. We're also, where we can, aligning United Neighborhoods with the city's corridors of opportunity and other funders that are investing in some of those corridors, so we can try to have the greatest impact possible. Unite Charlotte has grown over the last several years thanks in large part to Mecklenburg County. So Mecklenburg County now gives United Way about $3 million a year to support grassroots organizations. So we are continuing to grow and expand that program as well. So this represents a fairly dramatic shift in how United Way has funding. It's no longer this closed room with a closed set of doors and the same agencies being funded. Every year, it'll be a competitive process. It's always been a competitive process, but it'll be a competitive process. The residents of those communities will set their priorities. They'll decide how they want to go about bringing organizations into the community, and we'll fund from there. Some of them may end up being our traditional partners, but it really is dependent on what those communities need and who they believe is best suited to address those needs. Our funding is a dipper of water out of the ocean to the needs in this community. It's significant to us, and we work hard to raise it every year, but it will not on its own solve any of the challenges that we face. But we do think that we can set an example for how philanthropy should behave when working in neighborhoods and with grassroots nonprofits. And we hope that by doing that, we can then leverage other partners to the table to make that impact greater. So that's kind of an overview of where we've been. And there's lots of other boring stuff we've done, like streamline the organization and restructure and relocate and all of that kind of stuff. But we figured you guys were more interested in hearing about this today, although I'm happy to answer any of those other questions. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kathryn to talk in a little more detail about United Neighborhoods and Unite Charlotte.
Move my slide. There we go. So yeah, I just wanted to dive in a little more deeply. Laura gave a great overview of United Neighborhoods and Unite Charlotte, but I can give you a little more detail about what goes on with each and where we are specifically in the neighborhood process. So as Laura said, Unite Charlotte is an investment in grassroots organizations led by people of color. It started as a very modest investment and then even got more modest, was down to about $200,000 at some point, but it has grown exponentially. And I think it has been kind of propelled in its growth by this growing realization that we have to bring a racial equity frame to our funding and how we do our business as a funding organization. So what we do, thanks, as Laura said, to give a grant from Mecklenburg County, initially of $1 million, now of $3 million, as well as some dedicated funding from other foundations and individuals. We provide funding to 55 organizations led by people of color. And we do this in 3 years. In that first year, we make grants to 25 organizations. And those organizations are grassroots, meaning they have budgets of under $250,000, and they have to be led by people of color. And when they're funded, we give them that $25,000 of operating support. And for many, that's their first grant of any substance or size. And then we infuse with that, or pair with that $25,000 in operating support, a year of really intensive training around how to run your nonprofit business, right? Because I used to work for a nonprofit organization. It was a service provider. And we always joke that we are nonprofit, but we're not for loss either, right? Because you can't keep operating at a loss. You have to bring in enough revenue to cover all your expenses. And so at the end of the day, a nonprofit has to function to a degree like a business, right? So we put everybody in the Duke University Certificate for Nonprofit Management. They all complete that intensive course, and it's a course that we're able to customize to meet their specific needs. And then once they exit that course, we do additional trainings, again, tailored to meet their specific needs. But generally, it's around IT, like what is the IT infrastructure you need for your organization? What is the fundraising that you need for your organization? How do you go about approaching evaluation so that you can understand when and how your programs are making an impact, and you can demonstrate that impact to other funders, right? So we're trying to put all those building blocks in place so that they can compete for funding from other organizations, right? Because, we try to make our process low barrier, but we know that not every philanthropic organization is going to be as low barrier as ours. So we're trying to get them ready to compete. So that's all the first year. And then in the second year, we pivot to be focused, more flexible capacity building curriculum. We really let folks just tailor it to what their specific needs are. And we tend to invest more in the leadership of the organization rather than in kind of those business fundamentals. So second year, Unite Charlotte, the first year is open and competitive to any applicant. The second year is only open to those who completed that first year. Second year, we make 20 grants of $40,000. So you can see that operating funding is going up. And then we make an additional $10,000 available in capacity building support, again, to be used much more at their own discretion and flexibly at that point. We continue that process in the third year. It's grants of $60,000 that go to 10 organizations. And so that's how we get to the 55 number that we fund over the course of the 3 years. So 10 organizations, we $60,000 and again get $10,000 in capacity building support to be used at their discretion. Okay. One of the things that we're also able to do, and this is just one pilot, right? But that last year we did a pilot of 25 organizations and brought them into shared services at the Children and Family Services Center. And what that means is those 25 organizations are able to get back office support in the form of IT, HR, and finance, right? And so the idea is that they consolidate the back office supports, let shared services take care of that, and then they can focus really on just executing on their mission, all right? So it's a pilot. We're still seeing how it's working out because it's new for shared services, the Children and Family Services Center, to work with smaller organizations. But we remain very committed to the concept that consolidation of back office operations can make the entire sector more efficient. So we're interested to see where that will go. So that's our Unite Charlotte funding stream. We transition now, I can get that to work, to United Neighborhoods. As Laura said, United Neighborhoods is really place-based investment that's focused on resident-led, resident-driven community revitalization, right? And so it's a real attempt to, again, shift how we do philanthropy, shift how we work by intentionally sharing power that historically we as United Way have held. But now we're trying to flip the script, share power with communities, and give them the opportunity to decide what their priorities are and who they would like to come in to work in their neighborhoods to help them achieve the goals and aspirations they have for themselves. United Neighborhoods started in 2018 with an $800,000 investment, which has since grown to this funding year, 2022, to $1.3 million. We initially funded 2 neighborhoods, Renaissance West, which is in West Charlotte, and Greer Heights. And we really tried to build into our funding model our theory of change, right? So our theory of how United Neighborhoods work is, as Laura said, residents know best what they need for their communities and for themselves. Residents can best achieve those goals and aspirations when they're supported by what we call a quarterback organization. And it's an organization that is community-based and that is dedicated every day to supporting the residents of that neighborhood, right? And getting them engaged, helping them connect to services, helping them build their own leadership capacity so they can advocate for themselves, right? And really building their power, right? And then lastly, we know that this is not going to happen quickly. Any kind of change takes time. And so we recognize that this neighborhood work, this place-based work, has to be a multi-year commitment. So when we launched it in 2018, we initially made it a 3-year commitment to those 2 neighborhoods. We renewed that commitment in 2021 and added a new neighborhood, Lakeview, the Lakeview Neighborhood Alliance, which Jamal represents, and brought them into the community. And we did that because we believe so firmly that this place-based work is, because it is holistic by design, and it's because it's 2-generational by design, meaning that we know we have to work with the entire family, we have to work with the kids and the parents, we have to work with that whole family unit. And we know that people have multiple needs, so we have to be holistic in our approach. We can't just deal with education. We can't just deal with health. We can't just deal with housing. We have to look at all of it in a comprehensive way because people are complicated and people have multiple needs that need to be addressed. So we bring that all together with our United Neighborhoods approach. And then, as Laura said, we believe so firmly in it that we've decided that we will really flip all of our funding going forward with 2023 into place-based work. So specifically what we do then is we fund that quarterback organization that needs to be dedicated to the residents of that community, but then we also seed a community granting pool. And so residents then are invited to set the priorities that we then send out our requests for proposals based on what resident priorities are. We craft our grant application around that. And then applications are submitted, and then residents sit and they read those applications and they decide who they want to bring into their neighborhood with United Way funding to do the work that they've deemed most important. Okay, so that's the model in a nutshell. So for 2023, that's a little small. I apologize for that. For 2023, we knew we wanted to focus fully on neighborhood work. And so we began a process of trying to make that shift really back in the fall of 2022, earlier than that. We began by conducting interviews with neighborhood residents, City of Charlotte, Mecklenburg County staff, and grassroots nonprofit leaders. So all told, we talked to well over 100 people to try to get their input into our strategy and really help us figure out how to do this shift in our funding model and to do it well. And then moving forward in early spring, which means fall was definitely wrong. My timing is wrong. That would have been January of this year is when we began conducting those interviews. In early spring, we recruited a committee of neighborhood leaders and nonprofit funders who are already engaged in place-based work because we needed help identifying who would be our quarterback organizations going forward. And so as Laura said, we wanted to center this work in the city's corridors of opportunity. And then we also have some historical relationship with Lake Norman, so we had some additional funding up there. And we needed to identify who would be those quarterback organizations. We made those decisions in early spring, and as I said, and as Laura mentioned, all of our grant decisions are made by volunteers, so we did have a volunteer committee for that. And then we began working with the quarterback organizations to gather resident feedback on what the community priorities would be so that we could write our grant application. The process varied by community. Each one was allowed to kind of tailor how they wanted to approach it. Some used surveys, some used focus groups, listening circles. So it was really a mix of methodologies. And then in June, we opened our application process initially with what we call a letter of interest. So it's sort of a short application to give volunteers, residents, a taste of what that organization would do. And then based on those letter of interest, organization would, a select number, a subset of organizations were invited to submit a full application. And again, residents made those decisions about who would be advanced to the full application. And that's where we are now. The application is open. It actually closes this Friday. So applications are due Friday, at which point we will move into our review of the applications, again, in partnership with residents. They will be invited to come to the table, read the applications. And then in September and October, we will facilitate meetings between residents and nonprofits who will connect with one another, learn more deeply about what the nonprofits propose to do within the neighborhoods. And then based on that, residents will make determinations around who's going to come into the neighborhood. All of that then fast forwards to official grant. The board on which Brian sits will approve grant recommendations in sometime in December, and then the grant year will begin in January. So that is where we are in the process, and that's kind of how our process works. And I think that is the end of our presentation, unless you have other things you want to add.
Yeah, we threw a lot at you. We're ready for questions.
Okay, Charlene.
Thank you, Kathryn and Lauren. And thank you, Kathryn, because I've had an opportunity to speak before. It appears that you have a great process
going on, and I appreciate it. And I think, you know, your change, which is wonderful. I'm just curious, and this is really just to make sure I understand, because I know you talked a little bit about marketing and communication. And my thing is, you've gone back to the basics. Do we have twofold questions? You have a liaison that you talked about helping the people progress to the next stage, but do you have a liaison or liaisons to help people who are grassroots, who are just getting started? And then also these quarterback opportunities, how often are they selected, and who selects them? And who are these people of color that you guys have, and how are they selected?
So,
Did you get all of that?
we'll try. Yeah. I'll do my best. So one of the pieces I didn't talk about, in addition to the quarterback, so there's one lead quarterback for each community at a minute, like one lead quarterback, and that's consistent. That quarterback is intended to be there through the life of this engagement. We also have what we call block building grants, which are smaller grants to organizations that, you know, that have the potential to become quarterback organizations with greater funding and greater maturity. The quarterback role, and you know, I think Tiffany Capers with Greer Heights, Crossroads, and Jamal with Lakeview, they can talk about what that quarterback role means. It is not insignificant. It's an undertaking, right? Because you are charged both with connecting with all the residents in your neighborhood, coordinating the work of all the service providers so nobody's in a silo, being responsive to the immediate needs of the community, and crafting a forward path. So it's an undertaking. It's a heavy lift. And we want to make sure that when we select a quarterback, they have the organizational capacity to do the work. At a minimum, they have to have 2 or more staff, was kind of the baseline that we set. So the quarterback we are dedicated to, but we also try and nurture new quarterback organizations and build new infrastructure within those communities. So we do that through block building grants. Again, as I said, those are smaller grants to organizations that aren't quite at the staffing level or the organizational capacity that the quarterbacks have.
And let me comment on why we need that structure with the quarterbacks, why there has to be that staffing level, why that has to be in place. So we are committed to funding neighborhood-based organizations, grassroots organizations, and United Way is still accountable to the 30,000, 40,000 people that give us money every year through our fundraising efforts, right? So what that means is the money that we then give back out, we've got to have some level of confidence that those organizations are going to be successful with those grants. We're not a foundation, right? I'm not just sitting on money that we're giving out every year. We have to go out and raise it. So we've got to have organizations that we feel like with the right support and capacity building, that they're going to be able to achieve the outcomes that they've stated. So we then can go back out and continue to raise that money every year. So, you know, we have put some parameters in place for the types of organizations that we're looking for, the fact that there has to be paid staffing. They can't just be volunteer-led organizations. That's part of why those things are in place. It's because of the accountability that United Way then has to have over those dollars we're giving out.
I'd like to just make a point that you said Jamal and Tiffany are quarterbacks. Can we invite them up there?
Sure, if they're willing. Come on, Jamal.
And that way we can direct some questions to him as well. It's okay.
In what area? Because I don't know who the quarterback is.
Okay. We'll let them share, because as they mentioned, they have to get quarterbacks from all of the neighborhoods to represent the neighborhoods, and they have to have some. So I'm just going to have them up here.
So I'm going to just answer your question about where, Ms. Ivory. Jamal is with the Lakeview Neighborhood Alliance in the Lakeview neighborhood. He has received funding. You can actually talk about a lot of things. Jamal.
I know we're Lakeview. I was saying, who is the quarterback on Batesford Road in that area, that corner? I don't, you know,
Sure.
They are quarterback. The then we should know who they are if you live in that
Right.
area.
So these are our legacy pilot United Neighborhoods representatives plus Renaissance West. We've been funding them for almost 5 years now. Lakeview's a little newer. This is the year that we're expanding to new communities. So we're going from 3 communities to a lot more, right? And we're in the process at this point of going through the funding process, getting approval. So quarterbacks have been preliminarily identified. Our board will not finally approve all of that funding until December.
Okay.
I know I'm
I
not
just want to, we just want to at least have them up here, instead of talking about this, okay? Okay, Jackie has a question.
Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. And especially you, Kathryn, since I know you're right from vacation. But who are the organizations in the Lake Norman here that you said were
In the Lake Norman area?
Lake Norman?
Sure. So again, as Laura just said, the quarterbacks going forward are preliminarily identified. Lake Norman has been challenging, and there are a number of places that are a little more challenging because there's not a quarterback type organization, right? And so in Lake Norman, again, through these block building grants, we have been funding Smithville Community Coalition for several years now.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The Smithville Community Coalition, we've been funding for several years now. We were gave them one of their first grants, and they're doing wonderful things for Smithville. But we were looking for someone that had a broader footprint than just Smithville, because we also wanted to do work in Pottstown and West Davidson, as well as in Huntington Green. And so we're working preliminarily. We've identified the Ada Jenkins Center as a quarterback up there.
That's the one I was. Thank you.
Because they're the only organization that has that
Yes,
footprint over the whole place.
Sorry, I don't know.
That's okay. I want to stand up so they'll make sure that they see me. I'm Crystal Bryce with Yes Academy. We support homeless and low-income CMS students. We're in the Coolwood area, so we're right off of Brookshire in that area. And we've been doing contract work with CMS, but we also have a nonprofit side. You spoke about the grassroots organizations that tend to want to support in various ways, and this may have already come up. I came in a little bit late. How does a grassroots organization like mine actually merge into the network with United? Because I've always seen it as huge name within the community that already has an embedded network of organizations that you work with. I know you were speaking about that as soon as I walked in. How does an organization like mine, that's only a year and a half old, but doing some major work with homeless students, how do we get within the network just to even begin to know all of what you do, and then eventually down the road, receive funding?
That is a great question, and Kathryn will answer specifically around Unite Charlotte, but more broadly, I just want to drive home the point, because a few of you did come in after I think I said this. We are no longer funding the same organizations year over year. So what you described is exactly how United Way has operated historically, right? That it's kind of this closed system and it's very difficult to get in it. All of those traditional partners are being defunded at the end of this year, all of them. So going forward, it's about what the needs of the community are and which organization can make the best case to meet those needs. But Kathryn can talk specifically about, for the grassroots organizations, how to navigate the process.
Yeah. So, our funding process only opens once a year, right? And so concretely, we will send out when our funding process is open, which will be about June or July of next year, if historical patterns hold, we will send out through every vehicle we can an announcement that the grant is open, right? And so if you would like to just be aware that it's open, follow us on social, check our website. We send it out to our distribution list, to everybody that's ever had contact with us. We send it out to other funders and ask them to distribute it.
And to the media.
And we send it to the media. We send it to the city and the county. So we really do try and rely on multiple distribution methods to get the word out that we're open. We also, we're a small staff, but we try and be really accessible. So, shoot us an email, say you want to meet, and let's get to know you. Let's have that conversation about what are the different things that we do that you could get connected with and involved with.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So I'm going to be down a staff soon, so it may take me a minute, but again, we try and make ourselves as available as we can because we want people to feel like it's a little bit of a cliche. It is your United Way, right? That we are a community-based organization, and we want to be accessible to you.
Okay.
Can I say this? Ms. Firmin-Sellers mentioned before you enter, they have a grant that ends Friday, right?
It closes Friday.
Closes Friday, just in case you want to.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, no. So the letter, only people who went through the letter of interest process can get forward. So I'm sorry, the door is closed for this year, but would love to talk to you about next year.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to take a person, Chris, and then we'd like to have the quarterbacks introduce themselves and just tell us about their neighborhoods, since you've already qualified them. So Chris, as a person.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Do you offer a list or is whoever you grant your gifts to, is that list open to the public? So
Yeah.
if they're interested in any of the programs or volunteer or work with those programs, how can you find out?
So last year's, the 2022 grant recipients are all on our website, and you can get to know them there. And as soon as we know what the 2023 recipients are, who those are, we will put those on our website as well. So a list of every funded partner is on our website.
Okay. Now, if you would introduce yourself and your neighborhood, tell us a little bit about how you all operate with the
Happy to do so. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tiffany Capers, and I am the Executive Director of Crossroads Corporation for Affordable Housing and Community Development. My quarterback organization serves the Greer Heights neighborhood. The Greer Heights neighborhood is about 1,200 households big, 3,000 people big in Charlotte, just off of Monroe Road. Crossroads has been a nonprofit organization since 2008, primarily focused on affordable housing and community development when it started, in a partnership with Billingsville Elementary. Academic enrichment, making sure students had what they needed was very important, as well as redeveloping and revitalizing the Greer Heights community. From 2008 till now, we've developed over 40 units of affordable housing, sold those houses to persons who qualify based on 80% of the area median income, which changes year over year. But our last houses in 2018-19 sold for $190,000 with down payment assistance. Home buyers are able to buy homes with mortgages at around $150,000. Today, our houses are selling for about $206,000, and with down payment assistance, people are getting mortgages at around $160,000. So our target market is basically for persons who would be considered workforce employed, workforce-based income, but 80% of the area median income. Crossroads was identified, I would say, as a community quarterback organization because it had already had a pre-existing track record of being engaged in the community and had already made some investment in the Greer Heights community. So identifying Crossroads was somewhat easy because it existed in the Greer Heights community already, and it also had relationships with pre-existing organizations serving the community as well. The Greer Heights Community Improvement Organization, as well as the Greer Heights Economic Foundation, predates Crossroads. We work with them very closely. The Greer Heights Community Improvement Organization president serves on our board. The Greer Heights Economic Foundation directors have served on our board and continue to serve as advisors on Crossroads board. So while we're the quarterback organization, a part of what we do is also convene the other organizations that support the Greer Heights community. So we consider ourselves to be a quote unquote, a broker, if you will, of services and supports to provide responsive services to the residents of Greer Heights.
Okay, thank you, Jamal.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jamal Kennard. I'm the Executive Director of Lakeview Neighborhood Alliance. I'm also a resident of the Lakeview community. The Lakeview community is right off Roswell Ferry Road, so it runs parallel with Beatties Ford Road, right down the street from Johnson C. Smith, right outside of historic West End. That's where our neighborhood is located. LNA, we consider ourselves to be a community impact organization. Impact is an acronym that stands for individuals making progress and change together. All those individuals who come together to build LNA are all residents and stakeholders of the neighborhood. We've organized ourselves around a 3E strategic plan. Those 3 E's are engage, educate, and empower. And the four main components inside of that 3E plan is child and family stability, prevention of displacement due to gentrification and all the renewal happening on that side of town, economic mobility, and civic awareness. Now, that's a very fancy way to talk about old school philanthropy. Before we know that word philanthropy even existed, I'm from Newberry, South Carolina. I've been in Charlotte for about 14 years. And my family and other families in the neighborhood, nobody went hungry, right? Somebody was down to eat, down the street, needed something to eat. Guess what? All the women came together and cooked, and I went out and delivered the plates for those people who needed to eat. Somebody needed a ride to the doctor. We made sure that person got to the doctor. Somewhere along that line, we got away from that, right? The nature of this country and different things went on, and we went from being more family-oriented to being more individualistic and worried about ourselves. So I realized that when we did a survey in Lakeview, we asked them, when was the best time in Lakeview to be a resident? And they said the 1970s. I said, well, what made the 1970s so unique? They said it was family-oriented. We had a community business, right? The dollar circulated. You could go in the neighborhood and get anything you needed. You had a midwife, you had a doctor, you had an attorney, you had a teacher, you had a principal. You had everything you needed in the community. And some kind of way along the 80s, they came and told us that for us to be successful, you need to make it out of your neighborhood. You need to move on up like the Jeffersons. But when we did that, we left our neighborhoods out to dry. Now, we have people coming back and telling us that our neighborhoods are valuable, and they building up these houses now in our neighborhoods. And now we want to come back, but guess what? We priced out. So LNA saw that happening, and we said, hey, we got to preserve this neighborhood, and we got to make this neighborhood a true community. Now, what makes a neighborhood a true community? I think we need to be honest with ourselves and say we don't have any black communities in America. We dang sure don't have no black communities in Charlotte because we don't have our own schools. We don't have our own healthcare centers and hospitals that we manage and own. We don't have our own banking and savings institution that we manage and own. And we don't have a way to feed ourselves in healthy foods from supermarkets. So LNA is saying, hey, long-term strategic, we're trying to find a way to build an economic mobility hub that possess those four things, that's owned and operated by the community, that's a co-op. That means we sharing the responsibility and we sharing the profits. And that profit that we come from that hub will also be used to take care of families. Miss Hattie need a new roof. Miss Hattie shouldn't have to go out to somebody else to get that roof. The profit from that E-hub should be put in place to take care of Miss Hattie's roof, right? She got a hospital bill need to be paid. That profit from the E-hub should be put in place to take care of that hospital bill, right? So those are the things that we're doing. We're trying to build. We started in 2016 and just started meeting on a consistent basis. We started with a $500 gift from Faith Memorial Baptist Church, where our headquarters is, the pastor's Dennis Williams. And now to be a part of United Neighborhoods, United Way, having a budget of almost $200,000 going, and it's growing every day. It's truly a blessing to be here and to serve the neighborhood. So I know we're not exactly Beatties Ford. I know Beatties Ford is very popular, but we right down the street from Beatties Ford, hoping to build that model that can not only impact the 28208 zip code, that can be impactful in the 28216 zip code as well. So we call that project 1906, to where we are impacting all of those zip codes that are close to Lakeview and beyond.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay. We have Arlene.
I need to go back to the question I previously asked, and I know, and thank you for introducing them, but anything, Tiffany Petticoat's goal. So you've done a great job of the ones that you have selected, but I still, want to make sure that we understand, or that you hear me, when you start selecting future quarterbacks, that you really engage and involve the community. And because I don't understand they do great work, the selection process, I'd like to, make sure that the community is involved and engaged, because I think I asked a question about, how are these people selected? And again, I want to make sure we understand that for grassroots, back to the basic, true grassroots organization, that there is a liaison that walks them from A to Z. Because they deserve money too, and they don't have all the support mechanisms to help them, but that doesn't mean that they're not doing great things in the community. And I still would like to know anywhere on your website or where, who are these people of color that you have that are overseeing this? Because a lot of times people are selected, the same people over and over again. That's what I hear every day. And that's what I'm here to advocate, that other people have opportunities.
So I think that's what we're saying we're trying to do, is that we are no longer funding the same organizations we've always funded. That would have been a fair criticism of United Way for a long time, that it was a closed process. It was the same organizations. With the launch of United Neighborhoods, and particularly Unite Charlotte, it's focused on grassroots organizations. That's the whole point of it, is to bring new organizations that need the kind of support that United Way has a history of being able to provide, right? So it's not just a grant, but it's that capacity building around them to help them strengthen their business and be able to get future funding from other places. So that's the intent of what we're doing. These programs are growing. Are we going to get everything right out of the gate? Absolutely not, right? But they've started as pilots. We've had some success with them. And so now we want to see what happens if we put more investment to get closer to the community. Because again, a fair criticism of United Way historically would have been that we were hands off. We funded organizations that were doing stuff, but we weren't really connected to it. And so that listening to the community piece is really important, right? That's the whole point of this, is for the community, like you heard Jamal and Tiffany talk about their community's priorities. That's for them to set. Right? And then for United Way to say, here's how we might be able to help. And they might say, well, that's useful or it's not useful, but here's how we could work together to meet those goals. It's not for United Way to set the priorities. Yeah. And each community is a little bit different.
If I may add to that, can I add to that? Can I add to that answer? Yeah. Oh, no? Want to hold on? Okay.
But let me say this. This is what happens. This is what happens here at the Tucson Forum. When we ask a question, we just want the answer, and we don't like to revisit it over and over again. Sure. But I think Carlina had asked about who were those individuals that sat at that table. You said people of color. You were working on it. Am I correct?
Let me
clarify that it's something that you're working on, and they're not all there yet. The people of color.
Okay, so when I said Unite Charlotte is specifically for organizations led by people of color. So when we say, so I think I'm worried a little bit we're mixing things up. So the organizations led by people of color are the organizations that are on the website listed under Unite Charlotte. We went out and did well over 100 interviews as we were getting ready to launch this process. We talked to all kinds of people, white, Black, Latino, immigrant. We talked to lots and lots and lots of people. The decision makers who make decisions on the grants are, for the neighborhood work, residents of those communities and staff from the quarterback organizations. We are working very hard to ensure that at least 50% of any grant-making panel is comprised of residents, so that it is truly resident-driven, resident-led, right? Those individuals, I can't give you a list of them. We're not going to put them on their website. I don't think that's fair to them to make, to publicly say that you were the decision maker for how this money was allocated, but I will commit to you that they are residents of the neighborhoods. For Unite Charlotte, the grant committee is comprised of community leaders, corporate leaders, foundation officials, representatives of foundations, grassroots activists. Most, are people of color. There are some white representatives that sit on the Unite Charlotte Grant Committee that want to learn more about our process. Again, we don't typically make those names publicly available because I don't think it's fair to them to put them in that role. But so that's, I guess, my answer, my very specific answer to your question, that when we say organizations led by people of color, that's the folks on the website. Decision makers are volunteers that serve on our grant panels for the neighborhoods. They are residents of those neighborhoods.
Okay, Jamal, did you want to say something?
Yes, ma'am. I can just speak to my process of how I got to this point of being a quarterback. I went through the block building program with United Way, and the person of color that I spoke to at United Way was Kelly Cartwright. I think Kelly Cartwright is now in Cabarrus County with United Way. So that was the person that introduced me to United Way and got me on my journey. Now, once I got there, we had a community engagement series that United Way funded. And we met with the neighborhood for 2 months every Saturday from March to April. And all we did was good old cookout, let the food smell permeate through the neighborhood, and people came out and we sat down and talked to them. And we asked them, what do you need? What do you want to see? Okay, at that point, all we had was a $500 gift plus the money that United Way gave us. And we just had a board of people who wanted to see Lakeview improve, right? So from there, we had a culminating meeting with Habitat Charlotte. The person was Sharika Estrich, another young lady of color, who funded the dinner we had with the meeting. And we sat down and got everybody's input about what do you think LNA should move forward. They say we need an executive director. They say we need a liaison to meet with the parents and the families every day. So I had no intention on becoming the executive director. I had a job and I was working, but the residents said, Jamal, you the one. I said, well, Ms. Nola, if you want me to do it, I'll do it, right? Ms. Nola told me to take her to Burger King to eat one weekend. I said, Ms. Nola, you don't want to go nowhere else? She said, don't sass me. Take me where I want to go, right? So I sat in Burger King and talked to Ms. Nola for about an hour and a half. And I took Ms. Nola home and she said, Jamal, I'm handing the baton to you. I'm tired, right? Ms. Nola died a week later, right? So that's been the reason why I've been going so hard and what I'm doing in Lakeview, because I was ordained by women of color in my neighborhood to say, hey, I'm tired. I'm put the work in. Here's your turn to go. So from the block building grant to being a part of Unite Charlotte, I did that for 3 years, and now we are United Neighborhoods, right? But the people of color along the way is people like Jamise Ivy, who is our neighborhood. What's her title?
Director of Neighborhood.
Director of Neighborhood. So she's very engaged with us, and she works for United Way. Sam Smith, who is now transitioned, he was over to Unite Charlotte, who was a young man of color, black guy who's working to make sure we was on point with that. And now Renee Sherrod, who is over there, she's another woman of color working with United Way. So just to name some of those names, I know that you asked people of color who've been involved in the process. And we also have a board member right there for United Way. So
okay. All right, thank you. Okay, Chris, yes.
Okay. This is to you. Okay, so Charlotte is one of those cities that's known for not having the best upward mobility. Like people who are born here, if they're poor, they end up poor pretty much for the rest of their life. So you said that a lot of programs are based off of area income medium. That's changed. The structure of Charlotte has changed. So it's people moving in with wealth from all over. So that changes the structure of the area medium income. So is there anything other than apartment, like we subsidize apartments for people that's like way, way below that? Because as we know in America, one of the keys to wealth building is to own property. So if you're placing other the like extra poor, I guess, in apartments, how is that helping them to start to build wealth?
So I'll answer your question in a couple of ways. The area median income is call it a term of art. It is an index, it's a metric, it's a number calculated by the federal government. And organizations that receive federal funding to build affordable houses, we have to use those numbers in order to establish our guidelines, because we're using federal dollars, so they dictate what the area median income would be. The area median income is calculated using incomes from several counties, actually. So for Charlotte right now, area median income at 80% might be close to $60,000 or $70,000, but it's based on a federal calculation. It's not something I do as a nonprofit. It's not something the city does or the county does. It's coming, quote unquote, down, if you will, from the government. So there's that part. In terms of building homes for persons who are making way below 80%, 30% AMI is another number people use. The challenge is people have to qualify for a mortgage. Bankers are not going to provide a mortgage to a household that is making less than, let's say, 3 times what the house would cost to buy. So if you're making $15,000 a year, back of the envelope math would be you could only afford a house for $45,000. If you're making $50,000 a year, you can afford a house at about $150,000. So people, the fix for me, honestly, and what Crossroads does in terms of what Laura was saying as well, we're a community quarterback organization. We also try to use a comprehensive approach. So we right now are working with people on the workforce development side. We have a partnership with an organization called Potions and Pixels. They're identifying 20 students for their first cohort class to train people to become electricians. We're paying people $15 an hour to get trained. We have employers lined up to employ people once they're finished. Hopefully, once they're finished, they'll be making income $50,000 with a path to 6 figures in 5 years. So we're building the houses, but we're also trying to, quote unquote, build the people so that people can afford the houses we're going to build. But at the end of the day, if you do not have income to qualify for a mortgage, you cannot be a homeowner. So the fix is twofold. It's, quote unquote, building more affordable houses, but it's also making sure people have the skills, the training, the wherewithal to earn the income to then qualify for the mortgages they'll need to become homeowners.
Okay, thank you. Drew.
Oh yeah, okay, so my question would be, you say that like you're cutting off the funding with your past partners. How much money does that encompass? And is all of the money now available to like the other selected grassroots organizations?
Good question. So last year we granted out just over $9 million in total. About 6 of that went to our traditional partners. So if you think of it in that way, plus United Neighborhoods, and you think about it in that way, broad terms, that's about how much we'll have to go into United Neighborhoods this year. That's still at the discretion of the board and depends on our budget and all those things, but that's about what we should have. Then there's another about $3 million that's for Unite Charlotte. So that's how you get to the 9. But the 6 last year is what went to those more traditional partners. So yeah, all of that's being put into neighborhood work now.
And then the other thing that I would add is, as Laura alluded to earlier, we're not a foundation. We don't have a set amount of money that kicks off every year. We have to raise funds for it. So how much we have will always depend on how much we raise, and we do our best to keep that level robust. But it's a moving target every year.
But is that like the average over the years though?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's come down a lot actually. So this is a whole other topic, but United Way's funding model has been a little challenged, and we're trying to fix that, how we fundraise. We're diversifying our revenue and all of those things, but it used to be quite a bit more actually that was raised to put into the community. But we're trying to at least stabilize it at this level.
Okay, you have Jackie from Linear and then Bear.
Yes, is there going to be a mechanism as to if community folk, if we want to find out where other community groups are meeting, can we attend those kinds of meetings? I'm saying, let's say that Greer Heights is going to bring have an open house or something for me, I can go find out who is going to be there to receive funding. You kind of understand what I'm saying?
Are you talking about how to connect the organizations that are being funded so that you know what's going on?
Information. I don't have an organization connect. I want to know if Rear Heights is having a meeting to bring in those folk who are going to assist them, or Baby Ford Road, is there going to be some kind of system set up so that we can attend meetings if we're just community active?
Right. So the funding meetings themselves, like where grant decisions are made, those aren't public meetings, right? Those are a fixed group that come together. We do have, once funding decisions have been made, we do attempt to bring the different neighborhood organizations together to learn from one another and to connect with one another. I'm certainly open to a conversation about how to broaden that out to include folks that aren't currently funded partners, but right now the connections happen between those who are kind of funded to do this work through United Way.
Okay, I'm just a community person. I would like to know if I can attend a meeting with folk and funders and leadership in Greer Heights. Can I attend a meeting with leadership and funders for Baby Ford Road?
Lakeview, Lakeview, we meet every second Thursday of the month from 6:30 to 8.
I don't want to come to a neighborhood.
So let me.
Okay, I'll talk to you later.
Please.
What meeting?
What she's asking is to get an answer from the leaders about her attending certain meetings. That's what she wants to do.
If you're asking about the funding process itself, the answer is no. Those are closed decision-making process. So I'm not understanding your question. I'm sorry.
I'm not there.
Can I try, Jackie? Are you asking as a community activist, if you want to attend a meeting to learn about how to get funded? Can you? Nope. All right.
I have no funding, just information.
So I don't know what I was going to suggest. I know when we start the LOI process, that is the meeting whereby all the neighborhood organizations that are interested in funding will come to a series of meetings to find out about the funding process, the neighborhood priorities, the application deadlines and dates. That does happen.
She's not saying that, though.
But that's not what you're saying either.
She said, can anybody come to a meeting?
What meeting?
I don't understand what meeting.
If you were meeting to give out funds, is the general public invited? You know, can they come? That's what she said.
No, that's not what she's asking. I'm sorry, Jackie. We're trying.
Pauline, ask a short question, please. And you have
a short question. But I'm going back to the initial question, but first I do need to preface it. Dennis Williams' reputation precedes him. And as far as a succession plan, nobody believes in that more than I do. But what I'm trying to say, and you did give clarity, Kathryn, because you said people who, organizations who are led by people of color. Mm-hmm. I think Laura said something earlier to substantiate what I was saying. We ask questions not only of United Way, but Leading on Opportunity, all these organizations just trying to advocate for other individuals. So please, this is nothing. Laura, your reputation of fairness precedes itself, okay? But these are questions that we have to ask for clarity. So moving forward, when you do come to the Baby Ford Road and other areas, we're just asking that inclusive. Charles sitting here has a list of all the organizations on Baby Ford Road. Include the individuals on that list in picking a quarterback or residents or whatever, rather than, because we have a tendency, the late Harry Jones used to say, they keep asking me to serve. They keep asking the same people to serve. We need different people and younger people and seasoned people to make sure that the opportunity is there. Go back to the question, do you have liaisons or will you get liaisons to help the basic grassroots get started? A to Z.
Are you asking us, are we going to help nonprofits with their capacity building so that they can become stronger nonprofits as part of that funding?
Capacity building, but even getting started.
So you do have to be a nonprofit in order to qualify for any of our funding. So we aren't going to be helping nonprofits, apply for their 501c3, things like that. But with that capacity building that we do with Unite Charlotte, we do help them meet those next milestones. So maybe it's, you've got to get your charitable solicitation license now. You've got to get your audit in line. So we have softened our requirements a little bit for the initial funding for those grassroots organizations for that exact reason, Carly, and to try to help get over those barriers to entry. But we also recognize that they've got to get those things too, right? If they want to grow and strengthen and get funding from other places and continue to get funding from us. So we've relaxed some of those requirements so that we can help them in those first few years, get all of those I's dotted, T's crossed, get things, ready to go organizationally. So we are doing some of that, but we're not saying, hey, I'm interested in starting a nonprofit, come meet with United Way. But once you've got your nonprofit, then you're eligible for Unite Charlotte. Yeah. And does that help?
Yes, that helps. And once you write that grant, who's helping?
So
we have staff that help.
Yeah, and so I'm also, to answer your other question, we are working to build out our staffing model. Again, this is all a work in progress that we're trying to grow and build it, build the plane as you fly it. So yes, we have plans to build out our staffing model to provide additional supports to neighborhoods. I can be more specific about that if you wish, but we realize we need to grow the staffing. And then, we do, again, work to make it a low barrier process. So as Tiffany said, we have informational sessions that will help you understand our grant process and our grant application, help you write that first application to get it in. Residents very explicitly on the front end, we say look for the content, look for the meat of the application. Don't be caught up in the niceties of how it was presented, because we understand that not everybody has that professional grant writer on staff to present things just so with a pretty bow. So those are steps that we are taking. But to Laura's point, we don't have the capacity as an organization to support every nonprofit out there with capacity building. I wish that we could. I wish that we did.
No matter what, even though we've tried to reduce barriers and all that, we have a limited amount of resources, both staffing and funding, and so it's always going to be a competitive process, right?
Okay. And I don't have a target list. Mary, you have the next question.
Like what Jamal and Tiffany are doing in their organizations, and it's wonderful. And I actually live on the Court Road, and I wanted to know, because I am the president of my neighborhood, and I don't know anything about this quarterbacking, and I wanted to know, how do I find out who the quarterback is for my organization, and why am I not involved in what's going on?
And Mary, seriously, should they have addressed that? They only have
I said I was late coming in.
Yeah, well, they only have 3 quarterbacks right now that's working in these things.
We'd be glad to talk with you about how we got to where we are and what our plans are in the future, and make sure that you're. We're in the process of identifying what's going to happen in Beatty's Ford Road.
These 3 are the pilots for this program that they're talking about. Okay, Francis.
Good morning. I just wanted to tell the 2 quarterbacks, Ms. Capers, I know Jamal and Duncan, just of a resource that we have been trying so hard to get out there in the community. We've been in existence since 2000. I thought it was 2008, but when I look back at our documentation, we really opened in 2004. But we are right on Beatty's Ford Road, and we have a number of services. Our first services that we offer to the community was mental health and substance abuse. I was a contractor at the time where I took my own money and opened up a mental health facility on Batesford while I was attending UNC Charlotte to become a counselor because I saw a need in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. It evolved to a trade school out of the assistance of several minority contractors that we put our money on the table and said, we want to teach our trades to the next generation. That started in 2016. We've had over 100 students since we started the school that have graduated and that are working in the industry. One student that I know of very well is making about $150,000 a year right now. What we do with our students is to provide our services to the community, because I drive around and I see the homes in Black neighborhoods that need to be repaired. One summer, we decided that we would target seniors in the Batesford Road area that needed air conditioning repairs, Freon, whatever, and we did that one summer. So I want to let you know there's a resource near you mm-hmm. That's going underutilized. Okay. We are nationally accredited. We have architects, engineers, and licensed contractors that are teachers. Okay. And so,
because Francis is going to come back and share with you very soon about her organization. But do you have a question for them?
So I just wanted to let them know, for the houses in your neighborhood that they need some repairs, mm-hmm. you can contact us and get those repairs done below the market rate.
What's the name? What's your name? What's the name?
The Batesford Road Vocational Trade Center, and we're located at 1406 Batesford Road.
Thank you, Francis. But she will be back.
All right.
She's coming to come and present to the board. Tommy, did you have a question?
Yeah. My question is, like, I've been active ever since I was about 20. And one problem I have is that the heads of these organizations, their income, what they make compared to what the organization is given is ridiculous. You got a head of an organization making $150,000 a year, but he's dealing with a nonprofit organization. And the average person come in there making $20,000 a year, $30,000. So is there anything you can do about funding, having income restrictions, something where, like you say, I'm the head of the NAACP, I make $150,000 a year, but the average member don't make $20,000 a year.
So all I can share is that United Way and all of our partners and most nonprofits that I'm familiar with adhere to industry standards around those things, overhead. Typically, it is expected that a nonprofit's cost of operating, including what it pays its CEO and its other staff, is under 20%. Some standards you'll see of what it brings in. So it has, you can't spend more than 20% of what you raise on those things. Some standards go up as high as 25%. United Way stays between 13 and 15%, so we're well under that standard. And the nonprofits that we fund, it's something that we look at. We certainly would encourage nonprofits to be paying, fair and livable wages to everybody. What I will share is our nonprofit sector is under fire right now. Fundraising is increasingly competitive. Our nonprofit friends and their staff are tired. The demand hasn't gone down, and yet their costs are going up. So when you see the costs going up at the grocery store, the same thing's happening to our nonprofit partners. They're having to pay people more. Their rent is going up. Everything is. And so then they got to get out there and raise more money. That's part of why United Way is a support to these nonprofits, because we help provide that unrestricted operating support that they can use for whatever they need. They can use it flexibly because it's hard for them out there right now. And so those standards are there, but at the same time, they need to be able to pay people decent wages to attract the best talent. These are tough issues they're working on. So we would never, we want them to stay within those guidelines, but we wouldn't get overly restrictive on it, because I want Tiffany and Jamal to earn what they deserve, and I want their entire teams to.
Okay, Chris.
Okay, so a lot of times Black people get caught up under the umbrella of people of color. Is it any information on your website where you can break down like how much of these monies are actually going to Black organizations or Black grassroots groups?
I don't know that it's on the website. But I can tell you that in the 2022 funding year, 62% of our funding went to organizations led by Black people.
Okay, thank
We historically have actually done a less good job reaching out to the immigrant Latinx community. And so as part of our United Neighborhoods work this year, we have we will have in total, 13 grant pools. I had to do my math. So we'll have 13 grant pools that are focused on providing place-based work, services at a place-based level. 3 of those grant pools will be specifically for the Latinx community. And that's a fairly new initiative for us. And we felt that that was important because we do have, weaker ties to the Latinx and immigrant community. But 62% of our funding last year, as I said, went to organizations led by Black people.
Okay. Next we have Winston and Tommy and then Charlie. And Jack. Okay.
Quick question, is this the national model or just for Central Carolina?
This is for our United Way and our community. There are other United Ways doing similar types of things. We are the only United Way that I am aware of, certainly of this size, that's putting all of our money in this direction.
Okay. Thank you, Tommy.
Yeah, my question coming back is it's like some organizations have income restrictions. If you join the organization of your income become a certain amount of money, then they don't bother you anymore. Why do you have these income restrictions when you want people to progress? Like if I belong to United Way, I can't make but $15,000 a year if I make over there.
So we have sure. So we have restrictions for Unite Charlotte on the size of your overall budget, because we want to make sure we're targeting those smaller organizations and giving them the support they need. But we want those budgets to grow. That's the whole goal, right? We do not have specific restrictions on what they pay anybody on their team, as long as they're staying within that industry standard of around 20% of overhead.
Okay, Charlotte.
Hello, everybody. My name is Charlene Henderson, and I am the liaison, the communications liaison for the historic Hidden Valley. And what I'm hearing from everyone is that we're looking for funding for communities. And so with Hidden Valley and our new structured organization, we have actually began to hold, number one, elected officials accountable. Number two, the city of Charlotte need to make sure that they're doing their particular job, reaching out to our community. So we're part of that kind of like corridor of opportunity and all that good stuff. But in the end, I know that organization is key. I definitely understand that. And two, that if we want the funding, we have to have an engagement or a partnership. And so I say that to say that when we're looking for funding, is there a way that Tuesday Morning Forum can actually be a part of the engagement process and not bring stuff at the last minute? I have been out here for a long time. I've actually been started with Lakeview. Mm-hmm. And so I don't like the fact that the information gets to us too late in order for us to really do something. So when you say Friday, it's like, okay. So moving forward, is there a way to partner up? Because that's what it's about. Partner up with forums like Tuesday Morning Forum and get, everybody on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So next year when we get ready to start our process, if you guys want to invite us back to share what the process looks like, the timelines, all of that, we can absolutely do that.
Okay, Jackie.
Yeah. And Laura, with the process for next year, about what time should we be inviting you back?
That's not January.
Well, it depends on it depends on what part of the process, but maybe you and I can talk offline to figure that out. So it's, January to May, somewhere in there, depending on exactly what you're.
And the other thing is, you had mentioned something, Kathryn, about it's not on the website, but those 60% or so that received funding last year, is that something that you can send to Steve so we can see?
So it on the website is a list of the organizations funded. Yes. So that's
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
No, that's definitely on the website, but I don't have black next to each organization.
No, I understand. Just
Yeah.
the organization.
Yeah, they're there.
So it is on the website.
Yeah, all the organizations are on the website. We internally did the calculation and it was 62%.
Okay, I misunderstood. Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Okay, we don't have any more questions. Okay,
First thing I want to say is there was nothing like Tuesday morning farm. And because of this group, I was not able to get the most for a piece of land there. But because I wasn't here participating in Tuesday morning breakfast forum, I wasn't able to know how much my land was worth because I'm completely literate. I didn't get the information. I sold a piece of property for a lot less than it was worth because that piece of property is now going to house 29 what's called townhouses on it. Just think of the generational wealth that I could have created for my family if I had known what was going on. And that's what I want to talk about now, because you all are talking about, do you have something telling people that, everybody's selling their house, they're knocking on doors, trying to get you to sell their house. Well, they want you to sell their house for a reason, so they can make a profit instead of you make a profit. So do you have people stay in their houses, keep their houses? Because housing is the only way that you acquire wealth, because unless you hit the lottery or you got a child that plays football or something.
And I think that has been a conversation that we've been having, all along. But I think that this process for the quarterbacks, when they put the quarterbacks, yeah, that's
I can give a.
And I think just with Tiffany and Jamal speaking about what they have been able to do.
Reed Park, that's the first established black neighborhood started by the Reed Park. I have a house in Reed Park. Everybody want to buy. I don't want to sell it.
Good.
Yeah.
So just a quick response. Yes, we are trying, Ms. Francis. We have a study we just completed with a consultant to identify all of the owner-occupied and the renter-occupied single-family homes in Greer Heights. There are about 300 single-family homes in Greer Heights, of which about 199 are owner-occupied. So we're trying to develop a strategy now to make sure those people who live in those homes have a plan for their legacy. I'm not trying to buy their house if they don't want to sell it. If they decide they don't want to keep it, there are tools like land trusts we can begin to talk about, but we are trying to do that.
And I would say,
no more land.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Because.
Okay. Jamal, did you want to speak on that?
Yes, man. We do something similar. So I think with our senior residents, the biggest thing we saw is the critical home repair that was needed. So a lot of our senior citizens were getting targeted with these mailers and phone calls. I think people would drive around just looking at the condition of their home, knowing it was worth, the land was worth more than the structure. So what we did in response is told them, stop answering the calls, don't sign nothing. Let us know. We work with an organization called Rebuild Together Greater Charlotte that was funded through United Way and the United Neighborhoods program. And I think we was able to do critical home repair for 26 homes this past year inside of our homes so that we can do an accurate assessment of how much their land and their home is worth. So if you were to decide to sell it, you should be asking for this price. But also said, hey, if you get that price, also know you ain't going to go too many places in Charlotte, even at that price. Right. So you might well just hold on to it and figure out a way to pass it down through your family for the next generation to cash in if need be.
Well, we'd like to say thank you to all of you. This has been really good for us because this is something that we plan to continue about paying attention to, particularly the Batesboro Road area. Not just the Batesboro Road area, but particularly the Batesboro Road area, because it's been so grossly neglected. And we feel very strongly about that. So with that being said, thanks again. We will invite you back. Jackie is going to make sure that, we get you in time where as Charlene Henderson has said, we don't need to know at the last minute, and there are so many ways to communicate out here in the community now. You can get confused, and we, at my age, you can't get to all of it. You know, you can't get to Facebook and TikTok and all of this stuff that's going on, and the emails. You can't. It's just too much. So, but we want to be able to identify with the groundwork, on the groundwork of all of this work, and you can do it through forum. We feel very strongly about that. At this time, we only have a couple of minutes, and if you have an announcement that's really burning, we'd like you to make that announcement. But after the one or two announcements, we ask you to send them to Steve, because Steve will put them on our website. We encourage you to go to our website, review our website, and you can go back tomorrow and look at what was said here today that you told us was going to happen. And you can make sure that you're keeping the commitment that you've given to us, if more than just coming back maybe between January and April to speak with us for some of the things that you say that are happening. And of course, Jamal and Tiffany has brought some realization to us about the process. And we none of us are going to forget the quarterback that we're looking for to carry this ball for us through the neighborhoods in our community. And as Chris has said, you know, people of color, we were concerned about people of color, but particularly the Black community in Charlotte, because it's rich and it's strong. And you got people like Colleen and Jackie and Natalie, and the ones of us, Winston, who's our youngest one, that's pulling us up to make sure that this thing continues from 2 to 4. So with that being said, do we have an announcement or two? Yes, ma'am.
So again, I represent the Yes Academy. I'm the executive director and founder. We recently just were awarded a contract to now expand our services for McKinney-Vento homeless students into the Wake County School District. So we'll be serving homeless students here in Mecklenburg County as well as Wake County. I am currently running our Close the Gap fundraiser. So all the support that we can get in helping us to transition our services into Wake County is greatly appreciated. And that can be done on our website at yesacademy.org.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Okay, thank you very much. Next, on the 6th of September, we're going to have your Congresswoman Alma Adams, and we invite you to all come back and support her. And after that, Jack is going to bring our candidates in. And you have an announcement?
Your friend?
No. Okay. Okay, well, anyway, thank you all so much. Thank you, Steve, for live streaming this. And all of those that have come today, please come back. Oh, we have a representative here, Nasif Majid. Did you want to have a word just to share, Mr. Majid?
No, good morning, everyone. Glad to be here. We're out of session now. And so the long session starts back up in February. And look forward. And I'm re-elected.
Thank you.
Just 99 times.
And I want to say we have Pat that's come back, that's been away, but she's been looking at us on TV, Pat Campbell, and Charlene Henderson, who is going to be an intricate part of Tuesday morning.
Thank you for having us.